So I just got back from Scotland. I got to rent a BYD.
Ooh.
Did you take pictures of it?
Well, I just got like one picture of it for insurance purposes.
Come on, man, you gotta
Should have live streamed it.
It was a Seal 6, so we called it the Seal Team 6 car. It was a plug-in hybrid, but they didn't give us the plug.
Oh, what? That's annoying.
Do they have a different plug standard?
They have there's a CCS2.
Oh.
So
Is it like the
plug
European
looks-
one where you bring your own cable?
Yeah, except that some of the, I saw a number of charging stations, and some of them had no cable, and some of them did have a cable.
Huh. Is that running? You got power and stuff?
You want to check on getting that going.
No,
I gotta shut this stuff over here, and we can get this plugged in there.
I was just because the power off of the power socket is a little bit choppy.
Really?
I think it's a little square.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's why would they do that?
So I've got
it's gotta be
that
pure
needle
sine
plug.
wave. What, like, you've had trouble with it being choppy before? I can't imagine they wouldn't have a pure sine wave inverter.
Yeah, I think it's like it's not a square wave, but it's also not a clean pure sine.
Really? I would be very, very surprised if that was the case. My lighting is never the same. Yes, except for that one. Oh, we might not need it. Well, actually, we might as well. But what we do need is the HDMI.
Like all my power. So like we can switch over and run through the Eco Flow. Power cleanup.
Try the GM.
We can try the GM.
It's not bad.
No, I mean like, I've never had a problem with it.
So why are you suspecting that it has one?
Stereo for you.
Right.
Yeah.
I never run a lot of audio.
There we go.
And this sounds like it's not.
That sounds alright.
I guess it's good. I just want to.
So the other thing, you showed that graph a couple of meetings ago about the adoption rate.
Yeah.
And that was data as of 2023. What's really interesting, I was in Southeast Asia earlier this year, and Vietnam and Thailand didn't even show up on that graph. They were like 0%. They're now at 40%. And that's the 2025 numbers. And right now, they're going through the roof because of the oil shortage that they're experiencing. They get all their oil from Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
Well, VinFast in
Oh,
Vietnam.
wow.
Hey, it has. I see you got a new ride, man.
I do, yeah.
Tell me what year is that?
September.
What, did you keep your old Leaf or no?
No, we sold,
Okay.
traded it.
What kind of range does this guy have?
It advertised 320, and we actually seem to get 380 when the weather's nice. So I'm just totally thrilled with that. It's the large battery and rear wheel drive.
Is that one more efficient than an all-wheel drive variant?
Yeah.
Oh, neat. So it's basically the longest range one you could get. Ooh, somebody did work. No, I'm missing.
Yeah, if you look closely, there's hardly any
locker. Must have gotten left at the other venue because I saw it there and I bet somebody got it.
There's rumors going around about it all the time.
It didn't get put back in.
They've heard of Dusty Logo, which is a off-road bike company. So, but they also Logo, downline. That was another off-road that was like 3 years ago or something.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, there's kind of some stuff moving around. You know, the big market right now for Omaha is like the
This is probably too
So
high.
I think LiveWire
Well, I want to show that.
Oh,
they're trying to like get into that market so they can actually. I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going.
Yeah, that one.
I should know that. You remind me. I think the last show, I want to say it's 120. It's got an app, but it's actually not that dark.
Well, that is.
It's very.
Yeah, projector stand.
Center of gravity is very low.
What are you up to
It does not feel
these days?
like right now. It feels very
Do they think I'm
yeah, I got
Doing real well.
I'm selling one range. I own it, so I got we have 4 EV bikes right now. I used to have some. Yeah, it's kind of gone on. If you want to go on distance, you have to. Not on a fast charge, but it does have levels out here too. So
This charge is all the way around, open over a mountain range. It's like
actually, so I had it for about 400 miles, and the maintenance never failed. And that one, inverter, the DC, all that stuff, and charger, internal, so I mean, it's over there walking hours. I could not be retail value of that one.
I didn't really do the calculation.
I was just like, that's it's just like,
Wasn't using
warranty is,
it.
I don't know what to keep it.
So it should be blinking red. I mean, it's because if it's not doing that, it's green or blue or something. This button, the circle, is stop start. Button one more time and it will do this and start recording.
Okay.
And the screen will go
If
off.
I see a blue light, I'll tap on it.
Right, tap on it once and give it a second. And tap on it again. Yeah, if it throws an error, you tap once to dismiss the error, tap one more time, and it'll start recording again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a start bar, that's the really hot. 8 horsepower. It's literally
It is a big call.
It's still extreme.
Did you get the map that goes on the dashboard? Well, that's a recall. Let me show you.
Oh, 346 ones. So yeah, it's yeah. So my start bar is for it. So yeah, they're all like going up. So a lot of like for example my 0 or 16 ones. Yeah, all of them are just buttoned up. Yeah, they have quite like they're switching over to dirt bikes too because that's where the money is right now. So they're starting to build the Chinese, bikes are China. And they're exclusively focusing on dirt bikes because that's the hot market. So they used to make everything in America, but if there are any other street bike models, they're just shipping everything to China. I mean, I hate to see it go away, but it's nice to actually also be made in America.
Remember how far it is. We post a lot of pictures.
Oh, like 59? No. Oh, 59 DMC now.
Oh, you're the 59 GMC truck. Okay.
Unfortunately, I'd like to show you pictures, but my phone broke and so I'm stuck to my phone.
All right. So the thing is, there's this specific PW, not BMW. Okay. Never mind. I got it wrong. So, okay, which one?
Yeah, if you want to pull up the thread.
Which is the thread?
It's just 59 GMC. Yeah, I do have pictures in there. Unfortunately, I don't have one. I was just going to do an LDU in the rear. Currently it's rear-wheel drive, and it'd just be super easy just to throw an LDU in there. And then it's long enough where I can bolt on a Tesla battery pack without any modifications on the battery pack. So I don't have to, cut open battery packs and do all that. So that's the general plan. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do about power steering or brakes. What's the deal? 59 GMC truck.
Is this the 3/4 ton of match?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Here.
Yes, that's it.
I think you're short.
Me too. No, so it runs and drives right now. It's got a 750. I never tried it because I hate it. It's unreliable, it's loud, it's stinky, it's low gas mileage. Yeah, I was just like, you know what? If I can run this EV, I would drive it away. Yeah, I'm just doing a basic, fast charging. I just want a low battery and then low charging. Get reliable.
Mine's going to be
Yeah, it already is. First time with lights. Wow, that looks really good.
I ended up Sonic out in Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
I started with the different I don't get it. I didn't have time.
They kind of look like you were using a stock battery pack.
This one uses the stock. This one was designed to just take the stock and test the rear suspension.
Right. So what's the battery pack out there? Does that look like
Charlie,
It's a Model 3.
Oh, it is a model.
do you remember how this has happened before? So it's like, I hit the button to go into the menu, I cannot get out of the menu. It won't show my computer.
Yeah, I was trying to. It looked like the motors were Model 3, but I wasn't sure what the battery was. Yeah, it's so much easier just to, you just go on the battery.
It's in the cover that. But it's not for snow, but the showing is one of the moisture it hurts the water and stuff.
Right.
It is so proud of her. Yeah. I found, like, I crushed the whole steak. It was doing the thing where I was bolting something and I realized, and I got here, it was 15 I mean, this is pretty sensible.
Yeah, so after you mentioned salvage, trying to find it.
Oh, yeah.
So I found there's one in Galveston where they have options. And I could not write down started going for it. I mean, well, I mean, so you don't get to actually see what the manual pricing was, but I mean, there was cars that were getting basically I've got just like really everywhere around. So I don't know what the minimum bids are. I know there's some but I'm just like I don't
it takes.
And that was well, so my other another one of them, the blue one, and no part of the site. That's why I have to imagine when it's on TV2.
That's not your range.
It's only 13,000 miles. But
You've probably
9,000, 8,000, 7,000.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, you know, I was also being on Model S, you know, older Model S, and solar, and I was like, yeah, I can use some battery life on that. Model S. Yeah, the battery's probably
All right, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's much better.
Hey, Ryan. Where's Ryan? Our audio-visual guy is getting me mic'd up. I don't know. I guess hopefully that's just recording. Check 1, 2.
No, that's not working.
All right.
That's really working.
Got your ears on? Yes. We are working. Okay, welcome to the June SEVA meeting. Nice weather. Good to be back here in the garage and we can see all the cool cars. So we'll start off with car shows and a report on the May 1st ever EV rally at Green River College with the Switch vehicles. So down at Green River Community College, they just recently finished putting in a bunch more charging stations. So there's ChargePoint stations, a DC fast charger, as well as a bunch of new level 2s. So that's pretty cool. And then they have the electric vehicle training program that David spoke about a few meetings back, which is really a good deal. So for the whole quarter, tuition is just about $1,000 for the whole quarter, and it meets in the evenings. So it's really a pretty good deal, and you also get access through that to Ford and Subaru's electric vehicle training. But as a part of that program, they also have the Switch brand electric vehicles as training aids. And so these are little tube frame, very basic electric vehicles that have a low voltage lithium iron phosphate pack made up of CALB cells. And it basically gives the students experience with an electric vehicle with all of the components that any of our OEM big electric vehicles have in a very accessible little package. And it's a 3-wheeled vehicle. And these Switch vehicles, the Green River College has 2 of them. And then there are a few other high schools in our state that also have them for their high school auto shop program. And so Green River hosted a rally in the back far reaches of their parking lot in May. And they had Bellingham High School drove down and brought their Switch vehicle, and also San Juan Island High School brought a Switch vehicle. So we had a variety of them there. Here you can see them. And then they went on a little auto shop course. So throughout the school year, the students have been working on the Switch vehicles, getting the batteries all wired up and learning how everything works and getting everything hooked up for the high voltage and the low voltage systems. And so then this was their opportunity to go out and get to drive what they built. Now, some interesting things about them are the instructors limited the power first to 35% just to give it a try and see, so the kids wouldn't get too crazy. but even that was too much. As we all know, electric vehicles make so much torque, and these little switch vehicles are really lightweight, so even at 35% power, kids were doing burnouts and drifting around the corners. So then they lowered it to 25, and it was still, it could do a little bit of a burnout, but made it a little bit more safe. So here's a little video of some of the kids starting out in one of them.
Brenda.
So where's the motor in that?
The motor is in the back, and it's a chain drive to the rear wheel. So it's a rear wheel drive on a single wheel with a little chain drive.
The fixed ratio?
It is a fixed ratio, yeah, it doesn't shift. And then here you can see it more at speed going around.
Dave Cloud would be so proud.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm not sure what the upper speed limit is. That's a good question, but they do have some type of speed limit. And then, unfortunately, one of the vehicles had an issue. They all use Orion VMSs, which is good. And one of the vehicles had an issue where the Orion VMS cut it off because it was getting a low cell voltage, or like one cell it was thinking was sagging too much under load. And it turned out that the BMS also had a problem because one of the students had shorted some of the battery sense wires when they were experimenting earlier. So I helped them diagnose what was going on. But basically here you can see the little battery pack in front, and some of the cells covers are removed. And essentially, closer there. So you can see each of the cells. So here's the positive terminal, the most positive, and then it jumps across, and it jumps across, and it jumps across. All right. So on this side, these two cells are connected. Over here, they're not. But that's not a very wide gap. And if you're a high school student not being as careful as you perhaps should be, the ring terminal, as you can see, the width of the ring terminal is enough to bridge the gap. And the students on one of the vehicles, the one that had the problem, they had also put the washers below the ring terminal. So in the stack up of the hardware going into the cell, there's a bolt, and then there's a lock washer and a normal flat washer, and then the ring terminal. Now, you'd want to put the ring terminal directly on the cell and then put the washers on top of that to compress it all down, because especially the hardware is stainless steel, which is not, it won't corrode, but it's not as conductive even as normal steel, and certainly not as conductive as aluminum or copper. So they had put them on that way, and they were having trouble with the vehicle, and so somebody realized that when they looked at it. Then the instructor's like, oh, what have you guys done here? You gotta put the washers on top. So while they were fixing that, that's where somebody briefly touched one of the ring terminals in between and shorted some of the cells. Well, that damaged the Orion. So this is a good reminder, and many of us have used Orion VMSs. It's a very good quality VMS to use in conversions. And we also used it in the Cobra Jet 2200 Mustang with Ford. And it's really important, and if you read the instructions, it says that in there, but that you disconnect the voltage sensing leads from the Orion computer whenever you're doing work on it, and then this wouldn't have happened also if that had happened.
It comes with several stickers that say exactly that.
Yes. So it's a common way that the Orion can be damaged, but of course there again, the high school students, somebody accidentally did not take that advice and then shorted out one of the things while it was plugged into the Orion. So that damaged the Orion, so then it was causing some trouble later. But anyway, a good learning experience. Also, we had some insulated tools then that we got out to take apart the pack, because I was checking some of the sense wires. We thought we might have a bad sense connection at first, so we figured out where it was in the string that we were having issues, and then I took it apart. And I just wanted to say this brand is Booher, and I do not recommend it at all. So the socket was not well bonded to the metal part, so the insulated part of the socket was slipping. So as I was doing it, I was like, what the heck? How come I'm not getting a good grip on it? And the insulated outer portion was turning compared to the socket. So I was very unimpressed with the quality of those particular insulated tools. And I will show you my preferred one. Myself and Ron, who's here, are known for over-researching stuff if we're buying something. So I just mentioned that because if you do need some insulated tools, I did quite a bit of research, and at SEMA I checked out all of the insulated tool manufacturers, and personally I was quite impressed with the Wera, W-E-R-A brand. They're a German company and they make really good tools. I have a lot of their other tools, but in particular I really like their insulated set. It comes in a really handy case that's very portable and compact and easy to take around. And then something else that I really like is there are no skipped sizes. So there's something else I like about the brand Tecton, which I have for my other sockets and wrenches, is you can buy no skip sets of stuff. And I have made it my goal now that I never buy tools anymore where there's certain wrenches or sockets that are not included, because inevitably there comes a time when you need that. So I just want all of them. So that was another thing with a lot of the insulated tool ones, is they would have some sizes skipped, and that's something else I liked about Wera that they don't. Even if you don't get a Wera brand, something else important to look into that I prefer if you're buying an insulated tool set for high voltage work is that it has 2 different layers, each of a different color. What that allows is, as if the tool does get scratched or worn down somehow, if it wears through the outer layer, since it's a different color, you'll see the other color inside and see like, oh, I have some damage on that tool. Yes? Yes, these are metric. You can also get SAE, and depending on your battery, most of the batteries are coming from overseas and they're metric, and most modern OEM vehicles, even made in the US, everything except the tire valve is metric nowadays. So, but yeah, so metric, and this particular set goes from 6 all the way up to 19, so it's a pretty wide range with every single size in between. Anyway, and I have not had any problems with the ratchet. Everything is super good quality, but I just wanted to bring that up. So the next stuff coming up, we've got some more car shows. It's that time of year, and the first one will be the Burien Strawberry Festival car show. And Grace, who couldn't be here tonight, our secretary, our secretary, is putting it on, and she has 5 cars, 5 EVs signed up already. It'll be in Burien, and it's a classic car show, so most of the other vehicles will be old cars. That one is on June 21st, a Saturday, and we'd be happy to get any more vehicles for that. And then the next one, of course, is our big Gasless on Greenwood show. That's always a big hit. It's always SEVA's biggest show. And I believe that we have 19 or 20 cars already for that. Charlie, you want to say a few words about Greenwood?
Sure. Oh, June 21st is a Sunday.
Well, let me check that.
Yeah, June 21st is a Sunday.
It's Father's Day. That's why I wasn't going.
Yes.
Yes, it is on Father's Day, which is that also Sunday? Yeah. So that's my bad on Saturday. It is June 21st, and it is Father's Day, and it's a Sunday, not a Saturday.
Okay, so the following weekend, June 27th, on a Saturday, is the Greenwood Car Show. So right now I have 22 cars signed up, which is actually 3 more than we had last year. So we've got a pretty good turnout. It's a good mix of production and conversion cars, including a couple of plug-in hybrids. So I just sent out a note, I think a day or two ago, just to provide an update on the status. If anyone else is interested in joining the SEVA group, I request notification of that so I can register your cars before this Friday. I'm going on vacation for a week, so I won't be able to do anything as far as registering more cars and coordinating after at the end of this week. So yeah, if you're still kind of thinking about whether or not to bring your EV to the Greenwood Car Show, please let me know this week. And then when I get back from vacation around Father's Day, I'll be sending out the detailed parking instructions on how we're going to set up. And we will be located on that block in front of Ken's Market on Greenwood Avenue. I think it's between, it's around 70th. And we'll be on both sides of the street in front of the market.
And we'll be queuing up in the little neighborhood nearby.
Yeah, just south of the market on the west side, we'll be queuing up the cars to enter through there.
What time?
Well, so the parking situation at that block is a little complex because they line up the day of, most car clubs, they allow to park as early as they want because they have assigned areas to park. But for the people that are not in clubs, they basically show up and they line them up 3 deep down the street that goes back south. And the block that we're actually parked in is where they start lining up the cars. And the reason they can't back it up any further is because if they do, the cars going south, they back up way too far and the police department gets upset. So what he's told me is that, okay, on the west side, just in front of Ken's Market, we can get there as early as we want and parallel park in front of Ken's Market. What he's going to try to do is put some street barricades on the road so people don't actually park there. Last year we had a problem, so a gas car had set up their stuff there and they left it there locked, so we couldn't do anything about it. So we had this gas thing, kind of in the middle where we would want to park. So this year he's going to try to make sure it's blocked off with the street barricades. And he said, when we show up, you can just start parallel parking on that side of the street, just move the barricades onto the sidewalk. But on the east side, they're going to have all the cars lined up 3 deep, getting ready to go further north to park in the empty spaces. And at 7:30, they'll release that block of cars and free up the area so we can actually reposition on both sides of the street. We can start angle parking our cars while the rest of the cars continue to file up the rest of the Greenwood Parkway. So what I was gonna, in the instructions, say is that some people can come as early as what they want. I'm gonna try to get there around 6 and start parallel parking to fill up the west side of that street. But most of the other folks, if they show up just before 7:30, we want to have cars ready to file in at 7:30 when they start freeing up that block for us to move into. We want to do that as quickly as possible to avoid having other gas cars starting to, park in the spaces that we want to take out.
All right. And then, how many, raise your hand if you have ever been to one of the World Electric Vehicle Symposiums. Steve has too. Yeah, that's a few of us.
Does Vancouver count?
If it was the Vancouver EV Symposium, one of the EVS ones, yeah, awesome. They're a little bit spendy, but I have never been disappointed going to them. It is basically the largest electric vehicle convention that there is, and we're up to the 39th annual one, or not, actually not, they're not always annual, sometimes they're every few years, but we're up to the 39th one now, and they rotate. Generally, they'll have one in Europe, then in Asia, then in the USA or North American continent, and so it shifts. Well, it's back in North America this year and relatively close by in Long Beach, California, and that's on June 21st through 24th. So you can go to EVS 39, if you Google EVS 39, yes?
Canceled.
Oh no! What?
I was just checking on it. EVS 39 canceled. Roundler regret to announce that due to unforeseen circumstances, EVS 39 scheduled for June 21st to 24th, 2026 has been canceled.
Oh! Thank you. Well, that's very sad and disappointing.
It's like the one in Portland that got axed because of
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, what a bummer. Yeah, so the time it was going to be the closest it would ever be to Washington was when it was in Portland and it got canceled from COVID. This is a real big disappointment, I guess. Oh, wow. Especially for California. There's so many California companies. That's surprising. Well, thank you for the update. Forget what I said about that then.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez, I just saved $1,000.
Yeah. True, we can keep that money for something else then. All right. So the other thing at CEVA we usually like to do near the beginning of the meeting is have any new folks introduce themselves. So I. What are the EVs that you currently have?
I got a Tesla 3, I got the Livewire S2, I got a Smart Car, I got a KTM 3 ride, I just sold my Zero.
Huh, cool. So he's had a number of electric motorcycles. I didn't even know that KTM made one. So the Free Ride, that's an electric motorcycle. Is it sort of off-road gear like a KTM?
It's not street legal, it's 100% off-road, it's a smaller bike, about 200 pounds. Kind of competing with some of the smaller EV bikes that you see, like the bike on sidewalks. So this is a true dirt bike, it's not a bicycle.
Cool. Well, and if anybody has not seen, you don't see very many of the Harley Davidson live wires, but he drove it tonight, so there's one sitting right over there. Anybody else here for the first time? Yes, sir.
I'm Brian. All on Facebook. Folks trying to check it out. All of the households since 2019 driving.
And which vehicles are in your household?
We have a Kia Soul that's a 50 drive. And my wife had a Hyundai i5. And I just last year traded all three.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, the other, our main presentation tonight will be by me, and it's one of those things that there's a lot of negative information out there about, a lot of untrue information out there about, but also on both sides. So lithium fires and fires related to lithium batteries and electric vehicles. And I want to give it to you as straight as possible, and I think it's important as EV owners that we discuss this and understand it as best we can, both so that when people bring it up, because it inevitably happens at car shows, and because of the news media, some negative attention around it, there's some misinformation out there about it. But on the other hand, too, I also sometimes get EV folks who are maybe overly confident then, or not taking it as serious as perhaps it should be as well. And then another big takeaway I want you to remember and get out of my presentation is that our electric vehicles that are made by OEMs are far safer than a lot of devices that you may have in your home or e-bikes and electric scooters and things, the difference in the amount of money and engineering time that the automakers put into designing very safe battery packs is quite a bit different than some of the things you might get on Amazon or some of the e-bike manufacturers who buy their batteries as cheap as they can from China. And the other reason that let's see.
Are Chinese EVs safe?
Chinese electric vehicles should be safe as well. I think that their battery technology, again, if it's a big company like BYD and stuff, I would not be particularly concerned about them, although we don't get to use them here in the US. But it's more the little battery packs in cheap scooters or hoverboards and stuff, and e-bikes, like even Rad Power Bikes, our local company, basically going out of business because of recalls due to fire danger. And so it's a very real concern with a lot of those. Let's see here. All right, so here's the funny old meme of the little dog. But first thing I want to ask is raise your hand if you've ever seen a car fire on the side of the road. Yeah, I definitely have seen quite a number of them throughout my life, and so it isn't uncommon. Also, you may remember the Pinto, and you know there have been issues in the past with gas vehicles and fires. This was put out by an insurance company, this little graphic. And there is a lot of information out there. Unfortunately, some of the ways that the fires are categorized by vehicle, if it's a vehicle fire, isn't the best yet. So there hopefully will be more data coming out that will allow us to see more specifically what it is. However, after I've looked at a bunch of different studies, and overall, electric vehicles are generally less likely to catch fire than internal combustion engine vehicles. Another interesting thing about electric vehicles when it comes to safety is they typically weigh more than your average vehicle. And here's an extreme example looking at the Hummer EV, which with its 212 kilowatt hour giant battery pack, the pack weighs as much as some compact cars. Now, that's good for you as the driver of an EV, because generally, when it comes to physics, the car with the more mass is going to win. And the other thing is with the battery pack, it's usually almost always at the very bottom of the vehicle, so electric vehicles have a very low center of gravity, and they're far less likely to be involved in a rollover accident. But this photograph here was taken just recently in the last few weeks by a friend of mine who texted it to me down in California that he saw, and he wasn't even sure what type of vehicle it is. It's a Nissan Leaf. And so he was asking, hey, can you tell what type of vehicle this is? Because there was just a big fire at the charging station. It is a Nissan Leaf, and unfortunately, Nissan has issued a recall for about 20,000 Leafs due to problems with it fast charging, and they're recommending that you don't fast charge it if yours is affected by that recall until you get the updated fix. So this is important. If you happen to have a Leaf, you should make sure that you check if you get the thing in the mail. The really old ones I don't think are affected. It's newer Leafs, I believe.
So
Yes?
We have a 2020 and we just had it recalled. Work for it. It took about 4.5 hours at the Nissan dealer. They schedule one a day, at least the original. And never had any trouble before, and it still doesn't have any trouble.
Good. Like, yeah, this thing has happened before. I see a number of you have Chevy Bolts out there. But even dating back to one of my favorite electric vehicles, the EV1, it wasn't related to the battery pack in the EV1, but the EV1 and S10 electric, the MagnaCharge charge port, the early design had some problems, and it actually burned a garage down, and I know that at least 2 EV1s were lost due to charge port issues, so they had to do a recall on that, and then they changed the design. But also, of course, Chevy with the Bolt, almost every single Bolt was recalled a few years ago due to problems with their battery supplier, LG, which is not a no-name battery supplier either, you know, that's a pretty big name battery supplier. So this has happened, and Chevy for a while was recommending that you don't park your Chevy Bolt within 50 feet of other vehicles or inside your garage, which is pretty absurd. But that is, incidentally, 50 feet is what the fire department recommends. Spacing, if there is an electric vehicle that has had a fire, it needs to be sequestered by 50 feet around it from other vehicles, because you don't want that to propagate. There's some pretty interesting presentations, including a really long one on YouTube that was put on by one of the heads of the New York Fire Department and also the San Diego Fire Chief. And I watched the whole thing, and so I'll summarize some of the important things from it here as well. But one thing that was pretty interesting is they said that most electric vehicle accidents do not involve fire, and that 60% of EV fires actually do not involve the high voltage battery.
So what's
other stuff, just like in other car fires, often it is electrical. But the point there is that basically it gets back to the safe design. Because there is such a concern with lithium fires, the automakers have done a really good job of making the battery packs safe. But yeah, it is interesting to know. They didn't go into detail on just what all the other fire issues would be, but they could be other stuff. Now, you also may have heard people complain about there have been a few deaths, specifically with Teslas, related to people not being able to escape when there was a fire. And in actuality, the people could have escaped if they knew how to mechanically open the doors, because sometimes when there's a fire, the 12-volt system goes down, or I think in some of the fire cases, it could be a 12-volt electrical issue that has actually started the fire. And so then you may lose a 12-volt battery, and in a lot of our modern electric vehicles, the doors and the way that you open them are controlled electrically and not manually. And so if you have a Model 3 or a Model Y in particular, you'll know that there's a little button on the handle that you use to open it, and it's just a little electric button. Now, there is a manual release in the front seats of the Model 3 and Y, but you need to know where it is and how to do it. And then the rear one is even more obscure. There's like a little hatch under a little carpet piece with a loop that you could pull. Granted, I would think hopefully people could climb. If they couldn't figure that out, they could climb out the front doors and more easily get out. But some people have perished due to not understanding how to open their electric vehicles, including up in Vancouver, Canada, a while back. And so the other thing I want to impart to you all is whatever electric vehicle you drive, if it is one that does have electric doors, make sure that you go through it and understand where the manual releases are and how to open it in the event that 12-volt power is lost, and go over that with your family so that we don't have tragic situations like this. What is this?
So this is a part for the rear doors of the Cybertruck to grab the emergency loop and make it a more obvious glow-in-the-dark handle.
Nice. So yeah, there are some 3D printed aftermarket solutions that companies have come up with as well. And yeah, the Cybertruck is a perfect example. This is one in New York City that's a armored vehicle, and there it's good. Not, a lot of people wouldn't even know how to get into a Cybertruck because there's not even something that looks like a door handle. And the things like the Mustang Mach-E are similar. It's one thing I like about my Ford Lightning it has real door handles, and also the Nissan Leaf has real door handles, and my Nissan Leaf key fob and the Lightning have an actual physical key inside the key fob too, which makes it easy to get in if the 12-volt system dies. There are solutions for the other vehicles, and there again, it would behoove you to know what that solution is, because what if you go backpacking sometime, or you leave the lights on, or something happens and your 12-volt battery gets drained and you can't get back into the car. You need to know how to do that. I'd also like to point out, in China, they have actually passed a law requiring mechanical door releases, but one reason so many of the electric vehicles have smooth door handles is because it does help with aerodynamics. But I like cars, and I thought to myself, didn't Corvettes have flush-mounted door handles since like about 1968? And yeah, that's right. So after the cool split-window Stingray designs from 63 to 67, when Chevy made the 68 Corvette, and then on into the 70s, they had flush-mount door handles, but they're mechanical. So it's possible to do, and I would hope that the automakers might choose that. And then yeah, here's Mark's electric Corvette conversion. It has a fairly flush door handle with just a little cutout that you reach into, but it's another vehicle that, I mean, in Mark's case, it's an electric car, but the gas Corvettes, a gentleman back east actually died when he got from heat stroke, and his dog, which was in the car with him, died because he couldn't get out of his car when there was a 12-volt problem in his Corvette. And the Corvette also does have a manual release since it has electric doors, but he didn't know how to find it. And they found him with the owner's manual in his lap, and he was looking through it, but he didn't get to the right page that they had it on. Anyway, so it isn't even just a unique thing for electric vehicles, but it is something important that also then Mark and anyone, like whatever vehicle you know, if your vehicle has electric doors, understand where the mechanical release is. I think on the Vet it's under the seat or like down on the floor. Yes, Ryan? Yeah, China just made a law mandating mechanical releases. But anyway, so that is one potential issue that can happen if there is a fire, and also if the fire, like the statistics said, did not start in the high voltage battery pack. The unfortunate thing is that it could propagate to there if the temperatures get high enough, and so you need to be able to get out of the vehicle. Also, the smoke is bad. So, of course, all smoke is not really healthy, and you don't want to be breathing any smoke. However, to be perfectly fair, and based on the research that I've done, the smoke coming from a lot of the lithium batteries is worse than that as far as health-wise than just a burning gasoline car. So you want to get away from it and don't breathe the smoke. The other thing about lithium fires, and this is kind of the most extreme or insidious thing about them, is the reactions generally create inside the battery when it goes into thermal runaway. It actually creates its own oxygen. So it could be completely submerged in water, which does a good job of cooling the battery and hopefully cooling surrounding cells so that they don't start, but it can't even necessarily stop the fire once a battery has gone into thermal runaway. And this is an actual photograph of a Tesla Model X that was completely submerged underwater and still burning. So it is true of the lithium batteries that they're very difficult fires to put out, and really almost impossible when the lithium goes. So generally it's best, again, to clear stuff around, like what can we as individuals do? Obviously, if your vehicle catches fire, get away from it, or if you see another electric vehicle fire, like sometimes they've happened at charging stations or something where a bunch of cars are in a row, if you're there, get your electric vehicle away from the vehicle that is on fire because you don't want that heat to propagate. I've also seen, and some fire departments are getting these new blankets, and you can look up YouTube videos of these fire suppression blankets. and they seem to be pretty effective. Again, the fire, it doesn't put out the fire, but it helps contain the fire under the blanket and prevent it from propagating to other stuff. So I don't know, you know, if you'd want to carry your own around, I suppose that's a possibility, but hopefully the fire department has them. Also, some of the fire departments were saying that they may need to educate the police, and like the San Diego guy was saying, they talked with California Highway Patrol, because Tesla recommends on the cars, for example, they told the fire department, if a Tesla catches fire, just get other stuff away from it. If the battery is on fire, get other vehicles away from it and let it burn. That will probably take 45 minutes. You could try and fight the fire and prevent it from propagating to other cells by flooding it with water, but it could take many, many hours to do that, and many, many gallons of water versus 30, 45 minutes, let the thing burn, you know. So it's interesting stuff though, because you can imagine that if the fire department gets called to an EV fire, and then you just see them standing off to the side, letting it burn, like, well, what are you doing here? But that's actually might be the best thing that they can do to get the roadway cleared as soon as possible. Yes?
So I have seen like new hardware for battery fire and stuff, and I think somebody mentioned the name of it. I think maybe they call it a turtle. It's like a skid jack kind of thing that the fire department can hook their wire lines up to, slide it under the car, and it can puncture the battery pack to directly inject the water to try to take the heat away, right? To try to cool it down and helps the thermal runaway. But that seems like kind of a specialized piece of kit, right? But it would go along with like the gauze line and stuff like that. They carry this special kit beyond the lane.
Yep. Also, Amazon has had a pretty bad fire that destroyed a bunch of their Rivian delivery vehicles. And again, some of the concerns, of course, are when a bunch of electric vehicles are congregated closely and charging, and if one goes off, then that heat can cause otherwise good normal cells to have a problem, because if you get most of the lithium chemistries hot enough to ignite, then it'll go. And so, of course, having a huge raging fire next to your vehicle, if it is blasting flames on it, then it's only a matter of time. The automakers have, of course, improved things, but like this is an early Tesla Model S pack, and even back then, on the top of the battery pack, they had these foam fire retardant blankets, basically, and then also above each module was like a mica material, and then they have umbrella valves and little designated blowout areas below each module for the pressure and hopefully flames to escape. And if you looked at the Tesla patents, they went into great detail about how they did them. The old Tesla packs had more simple fuses, but the new ones, and on some of them, actually had fuses with a little battery in them to detect when the fuse should blow and set the fuse off. But then they realized that's kind of a bad design, because that battery lasted only about 9 years, and so then you'd have to have your Tesla battery have the fuse taken out and replaced with a new one with a new fuse battery. But then they came up with a really super cool, clever design where the fuse is self-powered using inductive principles, and so that's what they have now, so they don't have to be taken out. They also went to pyro fuses that instead of being detonated by current reaching a certain amount and physically melting the conductor inside the fuse, there's an explosive squib that and then there's like a scored area on the metal, and it's designed to blast it open. So that way, that's how you can have like the Tesla Plaid and the ludicrous mode, and Ryan's Cybertruck can run the quarter mile in the 10-second range and not blow the fuse, because the fuse can take that high amperage, and the battery management system is sophisticated enough to look at everything and see, well, we're at wide open throttle, and so, yeah, 1500 amps is okay. But if there were a problem, then it can explosively blow the fuse. So they've made improvements, and yeah, you can see like an example of the older typical type fuse that also, if you've built your own conversion, that's probably the type of fuse you're using, and you have to size that fuse carefully so that, because you want it to blow in emergency, but you don't want it to blow when you're going up a long, steep hill, for example. And that's the other benefit then about the Pyrofuse. The Pyrofuses are a lot cheaper and lighter weight now, so they have a lot of advantages. The other thing is in the newer Tesla packs, after maybe 2021 or 2022-ish, and also in the Model 3 and Model Y packs, they have made a bunch of other improvements. And so this is from one of the Monroe teardown videos, but they basically have special goo that is like a potted compound that after the battery pack is built and all the cells are connected together, they put all this goo in between them, and it's an intumescent goo, which means that with temperature it's able to expand and hopefully contain both some of the pressure and help prevent propagation of cells if one cell goes into thermal runaway, so that it doesn't propagate to the others. And they're pretty good. I have an anecdotal story from a friend who saw some careless person drilling into the floor to install something in a Tesla, and sure enough drilled right through and actually punctured a cell, but only one cell went off. And then here you can see a closer up view when they scraped away some of the potting, but that blue residue is some of the goo, so it basically just is surrounding all the cells. But yeah, so like I said, a main takeaway I want you to get from this, and if people are asking, well, I heard lithium fires are bad, or I had a horrible fire, my neighbor's scooter burned down his garage or something, and they're scared to get an electric vehicle, the difference in the amount of money and engineering that may have gone into some little $100 scooter or e-bike versus your Tesla is a lot different. The other thing is the quality of the cells themselves. So the automakers are going to be using tier 1 lithium cells where they have a good relationship with a reputable cell manufacturer, and they're not getting seconds or things, whereas some replacement pack that you get for a drone or some other little scooter or thing, they may be getting the cheapest cells that they can get that were rejects from bigger production runs that are subpar tier 2 or other seconds of cells, and so they're not as good to begin with. So another thing that I like to bring up, because it's a fundamental difference between electric vehicles and gas vehicles, is the power and energy density of the fuel source. And it is the one thing where if there's a major breakthrough in battery energy density, it will, I mean, like if they just doubled it, for example, it would be the end of gas and diesel vehicles, I think, because it would be such a big improvement, because the rest of the electric vehicle drive system may be 70 to well over 90% efficient, so you're able to put so much of that energy into propelling you down the road instead of it just turning into noise and heat and stuff in an exhaust in an internal combustion engine. But so like as an example, the amount of energy that is contained in 1 gallon of gasoline is about 34 kilowatt hours. So you know that a gallon weighs about 8 pounds and how big that is versus like an older Nissan Leaf with a 24 kilowatt hour battery pack. That pack takes up the entire underside of the Nissan Leaf and weighs about 650 pounds, and it doesn't even have as much energy in it as there is in 1 gallon of gasoline. And then Coverjet 2200, it has about a 32 kilowatt hour battery pack. So again, not even quite as much energy in that entire battery pack that allowed that car to run a 6-second quarter mile as there is in 1 gallon of gasoline. So what that tells you is just how much more efficient an electric vehicle is, because it can do all that, or the Leaf could go 100 miles on a charge potentially on less than there is in 1 gallon of gas, versus you don't see hardly any gas vehicles that are getting over 100 miles per gallon. So that's good. It also does sort of play a role in the amount of energy for fires or stuff. You could potentially have a lot of energy in a gas tank, and as many of us have seen gas vehicles on fire on the side of the road, and also everybody knows that there can be huge explosions from gasoline. That is true, but it is important because of all the good engineering in the battery pack. You're not going to have a sudden explosion of your lithium battery pack, and the battery management system will sense that there's a problem before it happens. The thermal runaway generally doesn't happen really suddenly unless there was a horrible wreck and massive physical damage to the battery, and in that case you may or may not be alive already, and then it's a big deal. But as far as like if it's just like the Leaf at the charging station that caught fire, it's not like suddenly it just explodes. The pack and the battery management system can tell that there's a problem, and so in a lot of the Tesla fires that people have walked away from, the car warned you ahead of time. If your gas tank explodes, there's not necessarily going to be any warning. So that is one other difference. But that said, I'll show you some videos, and this comes from a news story of just a little e-bike battery, and once lithium cells, especially if it's one of the ternary chemistries that is more flammable, once it does go off, it gets really violent really quickly at the time that it does explode. So it is worth knowing. Another thing that the New York Fire Department guy was talking about is they had an e-bike store, and just that one store caused a massive 5-alarm fire when it had a problem, and over 500 firefighters trying to contain it from spreading to other buildings nearby. So yeah, the e-bikes, hoverboards, electric scooters, poorly made batteries for some energy storage applications, cell phone chargers, cheap flashlights. I do have a personal experience with a cheap flashlight that I'd gotten from China many years ago. It was one of my first LED flashlights. It was so bright. It used an 18650 battery. I recommended it to a lot of friends and marveled how super awesome and bright this flashlight was. One morning I woke up and smelled like a burnt electronics smell, and didn't know what that was, and couldn't really track down where it was coming from. And then when I went into the kitchen to make breakfast, thankfully I happened to have charged the flashlight on the tile counter overnight, and I saw that it had blasted into my countertop was charred there, where this little Chinese flashlight battery had had a problem while it was on its charger overnight. So thankfully it wasn't worse, but it could have been. So again, it was a cheap little thing with an apparently not good enough BMS. So that was the other thing that the fire department presentation said, is lithium fires are becoming so much more common because everybody has a cell phone, and many children have an e-bike or a radio control car or a drone now, or tons of people have drones and stuff. There's so many devices that use lithium batteries. So the San Diego Fire Department said that they have an average of about 3 lithium battery fires a week in the city of San Diego. And it's usually some tiny little lithium device. And for New York City, that fire chief said that they have more like 3 to 10 battery fires per day now. So it's becoming something that they have to train and understand differently now, because also that shouldn't, they said it's not often that the battery caused the fire. there's another house fire, as there have been for many years, but because all houses have lithium batteries in them now because of so many lithium devices, it becomes a lithium fire, and so it's an interesting thing. Also, in another case, as an example, a single cell from an e-cigarette went into thermal runaway, and the amount of pressure that can build up and force when this happens can be quite extreme, and so it shot across the room 30 feet and set a couch on fire. But I've seen other videos of lithium fires where it kind of...
Another reason not to smoke.
Yeah, another reason not to smoke, whether it's real cigarettes or e-cigarettes. But I've seen some other videos of things in thermal runaway where it kind of reminds you of those fireworks, the Saturn missiles, when the cylindrical type cells in particular sometimes get propelled off in different directions. Yes.
The reason why cell sizes and model rocket engines are labeled the same.
So the other thing, and this comes with some other personal anecdotes from a friend of mine in California, is the pressures that are created when there is a lithium fire can be really extreme. The fire department representative said over 1,500 PSI sometimes, and that they've gone to calls where an entire garage door was blown across the street and hit the neighbor's house due to the pressure that built up. And then also lots of shattered glass, like a bunch of windows getting broken out, and even walls getting deformed. And then my friend wanted to remain anonymous, but this is a text message that he was explaining some of what has happened. And then he also told me when I was visiting him, I got to see his shop and the aftermath of it. The insurance took care of it. It was about $40,000 worth of damage. But yeah, he said basically the amount of superheated gas is incredible. You just wouldn't believe it. I watched the Powerwall. Oh, this was an old Powerwall, a Tesla Powerwall that he had sitting in the middle of his shop on a little cart. And it was a recalled Powerwall that he had gotten very cheap. And so now we know why. But he wasn't even working on it or doing it, and he actually wasn't there. He has security cameras in his shop, and suddenly one of the security cameras was reporting motion, and so he looked at it and saw, holy crap, there's smoke coming out of this Powerwall sitting there. By the time he got over to the shop, it had gone into thermal runaway, and when he went up to open the man door on the side of the shop, as soon as he unlatched it, it blew open and knocked him off of his feet, and a huge hot wave of pressure came out, and then flames were coming out. All of the windows in the shop shattered, and flames were blasting out of the corners of the upper part of the garage door. But, so yeah, and he said that was an 850 cubic meter steel building. I saw the aftermath of it inside. The overhead lights and different things were just melted into weird shapes and stuff. Everything got so hot. That said, he built his own Powerwall out of an old Tesla Model S pack, and it was mounted to one of the walls of the shop, and it did not go off. And the fire blanket, the foam blanket on the front of it, was very charred and black. But so that protected it, and it did not go off, even in all that craziness. Another friend of mine lives in a development with different airplane hangars, and one of his neighbor's hangars burned down. He was awakened at 2 a.m. by the fire department coming. This was about a month ago, and the neighbor's hangar burned down, and it was traced to one electric scooter that wound up going off and burning that down. So the other important thing is, well, a lot of us conversion guys are geeks, or if you were to have a lithium fire from something, what do you do with the old battery? And that becomes an issue as well, how to dispose of it safely. If your battery is not damaged and it's old, Lowe's and Home Depot typically have battery return stations in the store that you can go take old lithium batteries to, or lithium power tools to. And then the San Diego Fire Department guy said that what they have figured out is one of the best things is to make a brine saltwater solution with lots and lots of salt in the water and put the old cell in that, so that that will cause it to drain down because it's conductive, and so it shorts it out, but in a controlled, you want to use a metal bucket though, probably not a plastic bucket. But so they'll actually come out, if there's been a lithium fire in San Diego now, what they're doing then is bringing these big drums with a saltwater solution out that they have the people put the other batteries that were near it or the damaged battery in, and then they'll wait a day or two until there's no voltage on it anymore, and then it's safe to throw away. Because the other thing that is a problem is lithium batteries are causing fires in trash trucks and in recycling facilities. So a little bit closer to home, the cool thing is Issaquah Mayor Mark Mullet, who used to be one of our state senators, and fun fact, was the first owner in Washington State of a Tesla Roadster. He got electric garbage trucks for the city of Issaquah, so that's pretty neat. So they have, I mean, what a perfect use for an electric vehicle. A garbage truck has a very short, predictable route that it always goes on, and normally garbage trucks are stinky, loud diesel trucks, so an electric garbage truck is awesome. But yeah, the lithium batteries, especially damaged ones, really important to dispose of them properly, because the fire department presentation said that 40% of recycling facility fires now are from lithium batteries. Also, San Diego said that they lost about $2 million in damages due to garbage trucks just in the last year from battery fires starting in the truck. And the San Diego fire chief called the call to recycle number like I had done and reported about at a different CEVA meeting a few years ago. And it's another situation that I think we as EV advocates should try and help figure out, and somebody needs to do something about, is I called that number, wasn't able to talk to a real person, waited and left a message. Over a week later, I get a call back, and the lady said, we get like 70 of your calls a day, and I have some old lithium batteries, what do I do with them? And almost all of the places you have to pay to dispose of it, and that's what this fire chief said too. And so he's like, if you have a damaged battery, like say your e-bike caught fire and luckily you got it outside and it didn't burn your house down or something, but now you've got this old battery and the fire department says don't just throw it in the garbage, and then what are you supposed to do with it? You call to recycle, they call you back way later or something. I mean, first of all, who even does that? Like a small percentage of people might even make the call. And then they tell you like it's going to cost you $150 to recycle a battery that might have cost you $30 or something in this device. Like, so what happens then is people just throw them away. And so that's something that we need to figure out a better solution for. I know our local state government has talked about making regulations for disposal of batteries. Yes? They what?
They take all lithium batteries.
That's good. Yeah, some of the King County has their hazardous waste thing, and they'll typically come around to different cities, and then they have one at the Auburn Super Mall, I think every weekend. They will take a lot of your lithium batteries as well. However, if you have a lot, like when I was done, I had a bunch of bad ones from my converted Pontiac Fiero conversion, and I went to get rid of the batteries. They took it the first time, and then when I brought more, they're like, this is way too much. We're not, and these are huge. We're not set up to take this much. So, yeah, it's something that we need to figure out. Oh, I did, unfortunately, Scott isn't here tonight. I wanted to ask him because he asked me what to do recently. I know that Interstate Battery in Everett accepts lithium batteries, and if you have a large enough amount, they will come to you and pick them up. However, you do have to pay them, and it's on a per pound basis. The One Green Planet facility in Renton that I told you about a few years ago, they were the only one. I spent a few days on the Call to Recycle website and went through all of the different listed recyclers, and almost all of them, you had to pay them to recycle the batteries. But this one that I called, finally, they said, oh no, we'll just take them free. Oh wow, okay. So I took trailer loads of old batteries down there to them, and so did Jay Donaway, our old president, and we got rid of a bunch. Well, after a bunch of trailer loads of that, they told Jay they're gonna have to charge 40 cents a pound, which is way more reasonable than any other place, but they did that. Well, I tried calling them recently because I had some more batteries to recycle, and they didn't answer, so their phone wasn't connected anymore. And so I thought, well, are they even in business? So I went down there once when I was in Renton. They're near South Lake Washington by Boeing there and Platt Electric and the Renton Landing area. And they were still in business, and I went in and asked them, do you accept lithium batteries? Oh yeah, we accept them all the time. What's the cost? There's no cost, we take them for free. Any lithium battery? Any lithium battery. We've got weird big ones and small ones we'll take. So that's as of about a month ago. So apparently they'll still take them. So that's One Green Planet in Renton, Washington is a good option for us locally. So I wanted to finish up, like I said, I'll show a few little videos, but also just go over some battery basics as well. So there's essentially 3 different battery form factors. You've got prismatic batteries, which is like what you've been familiar with as a lead acid battery in your car. It's comprised of prismatic cells. And then you have cylindrical batteries, which you're probably also familiar with, your flashlight batteries, etc., where the form factor is a cylinder. And then there's pouch cells, which is like what's in your cell phone. And this is a Mach-E, a Ford Mach-E battery with 2 pouch cells on it. Well, not the whole battery, but this is a part of a Mach-E battery. And then I guess technically there's also a 4th form factor, the button or coin cell. But we're not using those in e-bikes or electric vehicles other than your key fob. So the other things then is you've got your anode and cathode, and basically the cathode is positive and the anode is negative. When I've taught battery courses over the years, as well as when I've gone through some training with Ford for their high voltage training, there's frequently been people that get in disagreements about which is the anode and which is the cathode. So it's kind of like with electron theory versus actual electron flow and stuff as well, like why these things happen in electronics is unfortunate and frustrating. So the answer basically is, if you want to get super technical about it, depending on if you're charging the battery or discharging the battery, the anode and cathode switch. But the majority opinion basically is the cathode is positive and the anode is negative. So I like to think of it as anode with an N, negative, and that's an easy way to remember it. Yes?
So the way I remember it is C and A. Cathode is copper, anode is A.
Yeah. That's another thing on a lot of the batteries. That's a good way. The cathode will be copper and the anode might be aluminum. And if you look at some of the batteries, you can see the different one if they're not tinned. So that brings up the other thing that is very germane to the fire discussion, which is there are different types of battery chemistries. And so my friend in California whose shop nearly burned from that power wall going off said he will never bring any ternary chemistries into his house or any building anymore. If it's not lithium iron phosphate, he doesn't want it in his house after seeing what happened from that little power wall that was, you know, about the size of a little briefcase and only 6 kilowatt hours because it was a very old power wall. The fact that it did all of what it did really scared him. So what is a ternary chemistry? That's the 3-letter chemistries where it's comprised of actually 3 metals. And so like NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt, NCA, nickel, cobalt, aluminum. Now, the other confusing thing that happens here is because so many of those ternary chemistries were used and used only 3 letters, the industry has started shortening most others to 3 letters. So like you may have remembered in the past, we had like lithium iron phosphate, which would be LiFePO or LiFePO4 and stuff. Well, that was too long, and so now they've shortened it to LFP, but it's actually not a ternary chemistry. It is only the iron and the phosphate, or the iron phosphate and the lithium. And then also LTO, lithium titanate oxide, is not a ternary chemistry. And so the safer chemistries are essentially that are out there are lithium iron phosphate and LTO. And then this brings up another more recent thing, which is we've always, if you have a lithium battery for like a portable storage thing like a Jackery or backup power batteries that you get, or some kind of replacement battery for a lead acid battery in your car or something, it's going to be a lithium iron phosphate battery. And that's what this CALB, or actually this is Sinopoly, but same thing, cell is. And they've always been billed as being really safe. I have done abuse tests on them years ago on the CALB and Thunder Sky brands, and they were extremely safe. I've also seen a failure of our cycling equipment when I worked at Manzanita Micro, where it overcharged the cells to over 5 volts, and they puffed up, and a few of them finally, 2 of the 4 finally vented, but it was just smoke, there was no flame, and it was pretty unexciting, all things considered. So they are a lot safer. There's other videos of people like taking a lithium iron phosphate pouch cell and cutting it in a metal shear, and nothing happens, and it's in fact still powering a little light bulb until there's almost nothing left of the cell. And there's videos of people shooting them with guns, and just a little bit of smoke comes out of the hole that the bullet made. So they are a very safe chemistry. However, a few interesting new videos have come out that are worth looking at, and if we have time here, I'll share one of them. And the other one you can look up is Will Krause on YouTube. He does a lot of good battery and solar videos. But one thing that happens with lithium iron phosphate, if it does catch fire, because it is still possible to go into thermal runaway, it's just a lot more difficult. It has a much higher temperature tolerance. But if it does go into thermal runaway, when it burns, it creates a lot more hydrogen than the other ternary battery chemistries do. And so while the battery itself may not have a big explosive fire, that hydrogen gas that builds up, if the fire happens indoors or in an enclosed space, can build up and build up and build up, and then explode with a lot of pressure. But it's the hydrogen that did it. So there have been, not very many, it's very rare, but there have been some instances where lithium iron phosphate packs have caused like one shed to completely burn down, and it was traced to the hydrogen from it. So I can show you one of those videos. Let's see how we're doing on time. First I'll show you a non-lithium iron phosphate
30 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC Cool Down Your Room. It's smaller than a toaster, cools any room in 90 seconds, and uses just a fraction of the energy of a room.
We probably have seen the warnings, may not really have paid attention, but they're printed right there on the box of a new electrical device. And there's also rules at the airport about plugging into those adapters.
But an insurance company survey found most Americans are ignoring the risks from lithium-ion batteries, and the consequences could be devastating. Action 9 consumer investigator Jeff Deal live here in the studio. And Jeff, these batteries are in more and more of our devices.
There sure are more than we may realize, but that survey by Erie Insurance found 1 in 4 Americans don't even know what lithium-ion batteries are, and they can spark a fast-burning fire in a matter of seconds.
What was that? You was on fire! The bed was on fire! Okay.
It started with a boom. A moment later, there was a scramble.
Oh, you guys get out of the house! Wait, I know!
Trying to get the family and the pets out as smoke and fire quickly consumed this Utah home.
I screamed and I just threw the fire extinguisher and ran because I knew it was bigger than what I could handle.
Firefighters told Jody Burgoyne it started with a failure of a lithium-ion battery charger for a scooter.
It's like before you buy something, you're gonna have to think, I could possibly lose everything, including a child, but is it worth having this scooter for? I don't think so.
Lithium-ion fire risks are now in more places than you may think in your home, as the use of the revolutionary long-lasting batteries is everywhere, from laptops to flashlights, even your smoke detector.
We've seen multiple houses become total losses just due to these things being improperly stored inside of their homes.
Lieutenant Paul Hammerall with the Seminole County Fire Department said they've seen a significant increase in their lithium-ion battery calls. In 2023, we showed you this fire at a Seminole County transfer station. The surveillance video shows how the fire started and spread to 4 trailers. The likely cause? A lithium-ion battery. The county started tracking lithium-ion battery incidents last year. Since then, crews have responded to 44 calls connected to lithium-ion battery issues. And the fire dangers of lithium-ion batteries are different. They don't need a light or a spark to start burning, and they just keep burning. Lieutenant Hammerall calls it thermal runaway.
These fires, they burn really, really hot, really, really fast, and they produce their own oxygen. So there's really no way to put a battery out that's in thermal runaway.
They often spark when batteries are punctured, improperly charged, or they're at the end of life.
This is a Tesla Model S module
What happened when Seminole County firefighters punctured this small part of an EV battery pack as part of a test. The Seminole County Fire Department is so concerned about the dangers from increased use of the batteries, it's focused on being ahead of the curve, providing specialized training for all of its firefighters and inviting other agencies to train with them.
It's very, very dangerous, and the gases that it emits is also incredibly toxic. For us or civilians that are out there breathing the stuff in, it's a guaranteed trip to the hospital.
Some things to keep in mind. Only use original chargers that come with your device. Look for batteries that are reputable and have been safety tested. Unplug them when charging is complete and keep them away from anything flammable. Jody Burgoyne's family lost nearly everything, including a family pet in this fire. Firefighters were able to pull out baby photos of her.
So yeah, as you can see, that one particular Tesla module, I mean, they had to set it off. It didn't catch fire on its own, but once it did go, there's pretty much no putting it out. So, and it can be very violent. So it's good to know. Now, here's the interesting video on lithium iron phosphate.
Heard it 100 times. LFP batteries, they're the safe ones. No thermal runaway, no fire, problem solved. Unfortunately, that's flat out wrong. You found Stashed. I'm Pat, firefighter, mechanical engineer, and battery guy. I recently sat down with Luke, a battery scientist with 20 years in the field, and he's the lead scientist at Electric Guns. They do cell-level research and development, and they test batteries the way most companies never bother to. In our last video, we talked about Donut Labs and the solid-state height. Today, I want to focus on something more, something I see all the time in the comments: lithium iron phosphate batteries, or LFP. The narrative out there is that LFP batteries is the same chemistry, that if the whole EV industry switched to LFP, we'd eliminate battery fires. I see it so often, again, on the comments, the forums, everywhere. So I asked Luke directly, can LFP batteries go into thermal runaway?
They certainly go into thermal runaway. You know, every iron phosphate cell that we've tested here, many dozens and dozens of iron phosphate cells, they've all been able to enter thermal runaway, and everyone has been able to yield ARC data, accelerated rate calorimetry data, which is where we pull up the cell inside a calorimeter so we can quantify the thermal energy release, total joules of energy release, and thermal flux power rates.
So let's be clear on what that means. ARC testing, or accelerated rate calorimetry, is one of the gold standards for measuring how violent a cell failure is. In every single LFP cell they put through that machine, it failed. Now that doesn't mean that LFP and NMC chemistries are the same. They're not. but the difference isn't what you think.
If you were trapped in a small room, a room with poor ventilation, with either an iron phosphate battery or a high nickel NCM, NCA cathode cell, let's say, and they both entered thermal runaway, you would, one would have, and we also see higher HF and other F radical species. This is because of incomplete combustion and smoldering effects where the electrolyte didn't undergo a complete reaction with atmospheric oxygen to create carbon dioxide. It made partial combustion products like CO and other monoxyls, which are deadly toxic to humans, unfortunately.
So here's the trade-off in plain terms. NMC is more likely to produce a dramatic high-energy fire. LFP is more likely to produce a lot of off-gassing, releasing a significant amount of flammable gas. Which is worse? It really depends on the environment and the scenario. In an open environment, LFP is more manageable. But inside a vehicle, a garage, a building, a confined space, it builds an extremely dangerous atmosphere. Basically, NMC gives you a fire, LFP gives you a vapor cloud and a deflagration hazard. Neither one is safe, but they're just different. They're dangerous in different ways.
LFP can actually blow all the windows out of a vehicle or whatever, just from one cell if it has that fuel-air mixture where its own thermal runaway event, let's say it had some internal short that didn't lead to combustion in the cell, then it boils its electrolyte in a vapor cloud till it makes an air-fuel ratio that is flammable inside an enclosed space, and then if it ignites that mixture, then it can explode.
An explosion from a battery that's supposed to be safe. Now, here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. When an LFP cell fails, the gas data looks very different from NMC, specifically hydrogen. NMC cells produce right around 20 to 25% hydrogen in that off-gassing. LFP, that's closer to 55 or 60%, more than double. And I wanted to know why.
Lack of bonding to complete making water, in my opinion. My assumption would be you're breaking the carbonate ester solvent base, and you're breaking it, but you are not generating those broken byproducts to reach a temperature at which oxygen will automatically bind to them without a catalyst, for example. It's the problem with wood that's burning like a torch. You could bring it in your living room or whatever, and as long as it's burning hot and bright, it's not so dangerous to the people in the house. Obviously you don't want to breathe wood smoke. But if you, say, snuffed that torch out and brought it in, then you would be flooding the place with carbon monoxide from that smoldering piece of wood. So it's somewhat of a difference in that hotter reactions, kind of like how you dispose of dangerous organics safely, is through an incineration process where you burn them hot enough with enough excess oxygen that they can all bind to some low enthalpy, low energy, low toxicity state. Whereas if you run your incinerator, but you only half heat your incinerator, then you just flood a bunch of dangerous vapors and make a bunch of compounds that you didn't fully decompose into something safe.
The short version, LFP tends to burn cooler and slower, and that's actually the problem. The lower combustion temperature means the electrolyte doesn't fully react. It produces hydrogen and carbon monoxide instead of burning off cleanly. It's counterintuitive. The milder fire is actually producing more toxic gas. That's one reason why in an enclosed space, LFP can be more lethal than a chemistry that burns hotter and faster. This is exactly why I keep saying, when it comes to batteries, don't just ask, did it catch on fire? Ask, what's in the air? Here's where things get interesting and honestly a little frustrating. The whole LFP is safe conversation misses a bigger point. The chemistry isn't the whole story. How the cell is built matters just as much. And that's something the average consumer can't see at all.
There's lots of tricks cell makers can do that's unrelated to the cathode, though, as to when a cell enters thermal runaway. Some examples of that are if you want to gain resistance to short circuit tests, so if you want to be able to pass short circuit tests, use a separator that has some number of layers, one of which has a low melting point temperature polymer. Say that it melts at, let's say, 100 degrees C, at which point that has a melt flow and closes those micropores that are needed to have ionic flow between electrodes. And so it electrically goes high impedance and effectively disables its ability to drive high currents as it goes over that given temperature. It allows the cells to be tuned to pass nail bend, even repeated nail bend. We've got some large pouch cells that's at 100% state of charge, and you can nail bend it repeatedly, just willy-nilly stabbing the nail through it with no heat, no thermal runaway, and at the end of all those punctures, I still have to go discharge this cell to go make it safe to recycle it because it didn't even suppress its voltage significantly.
That's a cell with high nickel concentrations, the kind people call dangerous, surviving repeated nail punctures with no thermal runaway. And it's all because of how it was built. And the flip side is also true.
You can also have a cell like an iron phosphate cell and give it fairly mild provoking into thermal runaway and have it quickly and harshly enter thermal runaway blasting fire. That's because the cell was not designed around, it was using an iron phosphate cathode, but it wasn't using any other tricks in its design to add safety performance to the cell. And when you get a cell that does use something like an iron phosphate cathode and a bunch of safety tricks, you can end up with a cell that is very safe or very hazardous depending on its construction.
So the question isn't just LFP or NMC. The question is, what did the manufacturer actually put into the cell to make it safe? And right now, there's no label that tells you that. So all these safety tricks, they do exist. Better separators, smarter current collectors, design features that can survive nail punctures. Why doesn't every cell have that?
As sad as it is to say, sometimes it's licensing and patents. A Chinese company ended up getting sued by another U.S. company because they made a safety shutdown separator that used tech that they believed violated the patents of their own safety shutdown separator. And so they actually had some court decision that said this company has to pay these guys and change from using this safer separator product. It's an incredible tech that I would love to see used in all cells as an industry standard, and it's a pity that there would be any, especially from a legal body that's actually fighting to reduce safety in cells and EVs.
So let's say you've got a lot of cells, whatever the battery chemistry. They're all built together into a battery pack. One cell goes into thermal runaway. How do you build in that propagation resistance? How do you keep one cell from taking out the whole pack?
Well, I love to use propagation-resistant materials, like pottings that are laden with an endothermic filler that undergoes a thermal decomposition at a temperature lower than where cells will enter TR in a chain reaction. And so before that adjacent cell can reach its thermal runaway initiation temperature, it has to completely phase change the filler in this. It's actually a decomposition from a solid to a gas, has a huge quenching energy effect. And it's that one-time ability to quench a tremendous thermal impulse that allows batteries to enter thermal runaway and no adjacent cells joined it in thermal runaway.
One cell fails, nothing else catches on fire. That's the goal. And I asked about some other materials people use. Foams, honeycomb structures between the cells, things I've seen marketed as propagation barriers.
I've tested a lot of stuff. I've tested Nomex dividers that go between cells because that's what is in some NASA papers on how to make a safe space battery. It had no difference in propagation behavior than no Nomex spacers between cells, unfortunately.
They'll also build these packs with foam. And I'm not talking about firefighting foam. Expanding polyurethane foam. Think great stuff in a can.
None of the foams that I tested actually made a difference in the PPR clusters we were running. They still all propagated 100% the same as if there was no foam. This is one of the reasons why we use the materials that we've developed to put you in the ballpark. There's a product called Epic Resins S7253. That's been something we've been developing to allow us to have the tightest cell spacing while still getting +0s on propagation tests. And depending on the potting that you're using, you may or may not even need an external enclosure. The potting itself, some of the pottings that we use have a urethane binder for those fillers that is as tough as car bumpers.
When it comes to solutions like this, engineers get a lot of pushback due to things like cost and weight, even though, as Luke would argue, it may actually be the cheapest solution when you account for everything it buys you. Corrosion resistance, vibration protection, and propagation resistance all in one. As always, a big thanks to Luke for taking the time to be on the channel.
Need to publicly apologize to everyone.
Videos I'd encourage you to watch if you're interested, as well as the Will Prowse ones, where they actually look at a few different incidences with the lithium iron phosphate chemistry.
I should bring up though, like in the case of Luke, he has a battery lab where he's testing them and making them go into thermal runaway to test. So the fact that he said that lithium iron phosphate cells can go into thermal runaway, I would say that video didn't really touch on so much the likelihood of that happening. It's far, 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 far less likely to ever happen than it is with some of the other ternary chemistries. So it is a lot safer of a chemistry, but it still can happen. And then the interesting thing is that when it does, the hydrogen that is created can cause other problems. So as far as like, again, the takeaways I'd want you to get from all that is, the battery fires in your car, you're going to be a lot less likely to have one because the cells are top tier and the engineering that was done is so much better than a lot of these little devices. So if you're talking to people at a car show or something and they're concerned about an electric vehicle fire, the likelihood that that happens is pretty slim compared to other little electric devices. The other things is if you have an electric vehicle with electric handles or stuff, take it upon yourself to learn how to open your door if there were an issue so that you know how to do it, because there most likely is a mechanical release. And then the other thing that you could do is the NFPA has put out emergency response guides, so it's called an ERG paper, for every electric vehicle, and they require the manufacturer to help with that. And this is another interesting thing that they've done for many years. So I have a picture of one for the old General Motors S10 and the EV1 from years ago, but there'll be one for any of your models of electric vehicles. So it might be worth you finding you can Google the ERG for your year of Chevy Bolt or whatever vehicle you have, and then maybe print that off and have it in the glove box or something, or at least know so that if your car ever did get involved in a fire and the fire department came, you can also give that to them. So yeah, are there any other questions anybody has? Yes.
I just got a new electric bike. It came with a big cardboard thing with 2 UL numbers on it. One for the battery and one for the rest of the bike. And I haven't taken a chance to look at the UL numbers up. Do you know anything about that?
I would say that's a very good sign. UL testing, if it's if it's a real UL certification and that it went through, that's very expensive for a company to do. And so that's a really good sign. And because of the prevalence of lithium fires and the issues surrounding it, the underwriters' laboratories have come up with specific tests to put the cells through that are brutal, and that's the kind of stuff that Luke does at his laboratory as well, where they puncture the cell or physically deform the pack or heat it up beyond things to make sure that it doesn't cause a catastrophe or in a short amount of time cause a problem. And so I would say that's a good sign if it has an actual UL sticker on it.
On the battery pack, and they didn't have the UL on it, like a new thing. But they did have the CE mark for Europe.
Wow.
And I hadn't looked at it either, but it sounds like a good thing.
Yes. Sometimes, I forget what the trick some of the companies do with CE, where it's, if you got to look real closely, it's not actually the thing. What is the other thing it stands for? Like there's a trick that they've done. I forget now offhand what it is, but you have to be careful with that a little bit.
I did look up the UL ones and they were for the battery.
Yeah. The UL should always be good. Any other questions?
Not really a question, but one thing I should mention, I have heard rumors of these lithium iron phosphate batteries catching fire, which would primarily be applicable to people doing conversions or power walls or something like that. But I've heard some stories of those cells specifically. I don't know if it's a sensitive chemistry or abuse or bad batch or what. What was that name again? The Sungoda? Never heard of it. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess we're a little past 8:30 here, so I will cut our meeting off now. Instead of talking about the S10, we can talk about that at next month's meeting. We'll be back here next month again, and we'll have a really cool new conversion to show you. I've always advocated that the fastest way to do a conversion is to take the parts from an existing OEM conversion. And David, who couldn't be here tonight because he's actually in Utah going through the Weber Auto training. That's another good YouTube channel if you've ever seen the Weber Automotive instructional videos. They tear apart electric cars and label every part and tell you all about them. It's pretty cool. Anyway, he's down there going through the training program, so he'll give us a report on that at next month's meeting, and also share his Subaru station wagon conversion that he put basically a Nissan Leaf drivetrain in. And after getting all the parts and stuff together, it only took a few weeks, and he figured he could do it in probably 2 weekends now that he's done it too, if he was using the same parts. But it went really quick, and some of the stuff very fortuitously just wound up even bolting up, like some of the old hoses from the air conditioning system and stuff. The lengths happen to be just right for matching up to some of the stuff. But it's a pretty cool conversion, and he'll bring it here to show us all next month. So Any other questions anybody has or comments for the group at large? Yes.
So like 2 weeks ago, I showed photos of our RV, the Vixen, and it's probably, if I could convert that to electric, it could be one of the most eloquent examples of EVs that would get people excited. Is there anybody who would be willing to work on that with me? I just don't have the skills to do it myself, but I have money and I have the model. It's a Vixen. It's a 21-foot long, which is the same length as a sprint, extended sprinter, but it's only about 6 feet tall, 8 feet wide. It'll fit in a garage. The roof pops up. It's very cool. It was designed by Bill Collins, who was the father of what do you call it, the muscle car?
The DeLorean.
He designed the DeLorean too. So
oh, and the GTO, right? Or something?
Tempest.
Yeah.
Anyway, if anyone has any ideas, if I don't get it out of our yard this week, my wife's going to come and tow something.
Yeah, we can chat about that. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll get chairs folded up and put away. And then also, if we look around, be sure to pick up after yourself. The mall is really generous to let us use this space. And so I always tell them we'll leave it cleaner than when we got here.
You can just fold them up and lean them up against there. Different people have brought these chairs and we'll be able to put away. But if you just lean them up against the first
I take a photograph with a label on that. You have a headway cell there. Headway back on the keyboard.
Yes.
It's built to how much does the set like that cost?
I recall it being 400 something a few years ago. So all of them are fairly expensive, but the difference between potentially like the $40,000 garage fire my friend had versus this, and yeah, granted some of it wasn't from this, but like the type of stuff that the kids did where they shorted out the ring terminal, that's the stuff that this will help you not do. If you drop your wrench or a socket falls or something, this is probably
very secure.
They twist.
Twist and unlock.
Yeah, twist and unlock. So it comes off there. Yeah, then it can, fall off and get the rest of your twist.
I got that toolbox full of insulated tools from the MLE recently.
Oh, nice. Okay. Awesome. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. The only thing I'll say, although what I discovered, because they were at SEMA Titan, this brand, some of it was Weehaw, like this thing, but there's a ratcheting set. If it was in there, that was Titan brand, and we had trouble with the ratcheting mechanism sometimes slipping. But at SEMA, Titan was there, and I was talking to the guy, and the U.S. distributor of it is in like Auburn, Kent. And he was like, "Oh, we're right by." Because I was telling him I had this ratchet that we use at MLE, and it was stripped. He's like, "Oh, bring that down. I'll give you another one." Or something. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that the distributor was local. $60 Yeah.
So do you have some idea of who might be interested in helping you do this conversion?
So I am debating what I'm going to do. Yeah, you asked about that. I'm debating about what I'm going to do. One of the ideas, if I want to keep doing conversions, I need to get a bigger space. And I need to hire so, depending, I guess, on what your budget is, I might take that on. Also, that would be another person that I don't know if you're
I mean, I'm good with my hands. I just don't have the electronics or the knowledge and experience. No, the budgets are fairly generous.
That's what you got?
Yeah. Mine almost looks just like this one.
And then the other thing I was thinking is, I wonder what the wheelbase is. Do you have any of that by hand?
I'll measure that. I don't know. That's a really good question because it could be the same as one of the trucks.
And because that also, sadly, my Lightning got in there. It sounds like they're going to total it, even though it's still drivable. That's a goofy thing about some of these modern cars, like the Lightning's headlight and tail light costs like $1,500 to $3,000 per side. It's got sensors for the blind spot detection. It's just getting out of control. So something can get totaled quite easily. But yeah, so I've also been debating those. I don't know what the buyout is going to be for that yet. I'm saving that battery. It's got a great battery, 131 kilowatt hours and everything. And so yeah, also if you look at the thing like that, the fastest way to do a conversion to is to swap all of the components from.
That's what I would prefer doing.
Steve, so how's it going? Did Steven say that was a new car?
Yeah, I just got that in September, just before the rebate ended. We're really happy with it.
All right.
It was listed at 320 mile range, and it shows on there saying 380, and it appears to track to do that. So, yeah, I love that.
All right, that's good.
It's really efficient that way. Some of the driver aid stuff just makes me crazy. But that's true.
Yeah, chucking the wheel